We are going to transform these 3 glass pieces from Dollar Tree into one large piece using the assistance of these little accented pieces. We're going to start off by attaching them, and I'm using a little piece of foam board I cut off from Dollar Tree to be able to do that. If you've ever tried to attach glass on glass, it can take a while. It's also a struggle if you're just using hot glue. So I used hot glue and E6000 here to ensure really nice bonds. I would recommend letting this dry for a couple hours before you start on the part where you're adding in the accents. And it can be a little tedious. You're going to want to make sure you're putting E6000 and hot glue on each one of these little pieces to get that immediate hold, as well as to keep them in place while that E6000 is setting. You can remix this idea using as many glass pieces as you would like and as many accents and different types of accents as you would like. Paint it whatever color works for your home and your decor. I went with a matte black and added some gold accents onto this. I think it's such a creative way to add something unique and personal into your home. What do you think? We're gonna need some of Dollar Tree's canvases or whatever. This is not so much a DIY decor hack as it is an interchangeable hack. I have been really interested on trying to save money and to change out my decor as much as possible without breaking the bank, and I thought maybe you guys are too. So I'm starting this project off by cutting off the canvas on these, and someone dropped the ball. Why do people make this look so easy? It was not. Like, it was attached on the sides. I had to bust out the scissors. It was a mess. And then look at that. All these crusty bits. I had to sand it down. And then look at this. It's so rickety. I could have assembled 4 square dowels together better than this thing was attached. Moving on. You're also going to need some of these Dollar Tree wall clings. The idea behind this is to be able to stain the frame whatever color you want and keep your clean canvas, and you can paint that or whatever color you want, and just change out the actual design in the center so you can keep these up on your wall all year long and just update the look. Since we're de-sticking these wall clings, it is easy to just remove them right off your canvas when you're done with that style. Just de-sticky your next set and then apply right back in the canvas. For this large Dollar Tree wall decor idea, you're going to need some book pages, dictionary pages, whatever works for you, and a little piece of cardboard cut in a circle. And then we're just going to fold it to make it look like this. It looks like a cone, right? Like an ice cream cone. I'll put little baby scoops of ice cream in there. I'm going to glue it, let them dry. Make a bunch of these, different sizes. You don't have to be particular about it. And then start gluing them in a circle. I personally did like an outside layer. I left some spaces and then went in with like different size pieces in between the gaps. Once I had that all glued down, I then took these little glass ball accents and glued 6 of them to create the center of our little faux galvanized flower. We are making a fake galvanized flower out of this, and how it's going to get that galvanized look is we're going to spray paint it. Now I'm spray painting mine gold. You can spray paint yours the metal color to give it that galvanized look, but the reason I'm spray painting it gold is because it's going to match our backdrop. For our giant backdrop for this beautiful wall decor piece, I used a large foam board and a piece of Dollar Tree's new wallpaper, and just put our fake metal flower right in the center. Watcha! Sorry. I can't help it. It's so much fun. On a serious note, this particular design is what inspired me to want to DIY with these folding fans. I really thought it was beautiful, and I had an idea that just popped to mind as soon as I seen it when I was messing with them. We're gonna take this square down, and you can create this look with whatever way it makes sense for you. I knew that this was going to be long enough to keep the span of the fan open, so our design is displayed at all times. Want to create a floral wall decor piece with this, so I'm going to just put this square dowel in the center of this and make sure that it's even across the board to where we can apply some glue onto plastic sections of the fold. People, as you're doing this, you're going to want to make sure that you hold that stick in place and allow the hot glue to dry for as long as it takes, my friends. And I say this because anytime I noticed that I was starting to let up pressure, that it was instantly starting to close, and the little pieces of plastic that had the hot glue, it was just folding under those sections in the center here. Once it was completely dry, off camera, I go back and apply a nice thick layer around and a little bit of tacky glue in the center where all the little plastic pieces meet. Once that side was dry, I grabbed a little piece of floral foam. We are going to glue this sucker right to the center of the plastic on the front of our fan here. Now you can put this wherever you want. I decided to put it in this section mostly because I wanted to leave that little gold bit that our faith, all the faith that we have this fan is sticking together, leave that alone. And if you want to come back and put a tassel on that or add anything hanging off of that, you can. We're going to take some florals and stick in our floral foam. And I know these look peach on film, but I'm telling you, they were pink when I purchased them. Next time you're in Dollar Tree, people, check out their vinyl section. They're now carrying frosted window film. They have a few different designs. I was lucky enough to pick up 2 at my local Dollar Tree, and for $1.25, you're getting a lot. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to find glass decor plates for a couple cents at the thrift stores. But if I can't, Dollar Tree always has these for $1.25, and glass plates can make beautiful home decor. I cut me down a little sliver, just big enough to fit over the back of this plate here, and I'm taking a little orange colored pencil just to trace around where the center circle is of the plate. Obviously, you do this however works best for you. For me, I felt like just flipping over our vinyl piece, since the backing is easy to write on, it would make the most sense for me to draw on here and then cut out the extra so it fit perfectly right in the center here. It's super easy to remove from the backing, and don't worry if you cut this a little bit too big. I'm going to show you how to fix that and trim it up. Now, if you cut it too short, you're going to have to just make a whole new piece. I'm sorry, I can't help you any further than that. For the application here, you're going to notice that I'm grabbing a little Cricut tool. And that's because as I was messing with this film, making this video, I realized that if I was just using my fingers, the film, it was just coming right off. In an effort to save you the struggling at home using this to DIY with, please grab yourself something to actually scrape the back of the film for whatever you're applying this to. I could tell you it's easy, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, carry on with my video, get some views, but that's not going to benefit you. The directions on the box do recommend spraying a little bit of water on the glass surface, which is completely typical for using a film on a window if you've never done this before. But through trial and error, I found that using a little scraper tool on wood, plastic, or glass, it actually helped it stick pretty good without water. For this little bit of excess, I grabbed my X-Acto knife and just gingerly cut along the circle. This stuff trimmed super easy. Just be careful with your fingers, especially if you're doing it around something like this. It can be a little scary. I'm a huge fan of frosted glass. This is kind of a game changer for me. Absolutely love how this turned out. And it's super easy to add things to. You can take Dollar Tree wall decals, you can grab some transfers, plop them in the center, do a stencil. I've definitely done stencils before, even decoupage a design on the center, and you have a beautiful high-end looking home decor piece. as many books as you want, obviously, or just one, just one. I went with two, and the smaller one is significantly smaller than the large one. I have this glitter vinyl that I'm using, and honestly, it was my favorite to work with. It's a little bit thicker, and it did not shed. I didn't have glitter bits all over the place. It was really, really nice. I felt like the process of doing this was the easiest to make sure I had some overhang to flap around the book ends. And then I just cut it short where the pages were on the longer sides. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I couldn't tuck it in there on that way, so I decided to just cut it short. I took some of this. I got this on clearance at Walmart. People, pay attention to Walmart clearance. You get deals for $1. But I wanted to go a little shabby-ish with this, so I also took some of the Dollar Tree nautical rope and just kind of shredded the little pieces. Threw some greenery on top of here. This maybe took me 20 minutes to cover these books, and it's absolutely stunning how amazing this vinyl upgraded them to look like something you would pay so much more for in a high-end store. One more time for the people who skipped in the front. Just kidding. This beautiful pattern reminds me of that blue willow china pattern, and I thought these would look stunning as a large wall decor piece. We're going to need 2 of these for this particular project, and we're going to need a brace. For that, I'm going to take this Dollar Tree wood plank and use it to attach both of our fans to. Use whatever you want as your brace. I wanted something large and heavy, so this way I could put a bracket on the back of it as well and not have to have any weight applied on both of the fans since they're so thin and fragile. I'm gonna take this white multi-surface paint and just paint the very center of this plank, because that's what's possibly going to show through both of the fans. I didn't do the whole thing. You can do the whole thing if you want. I just needed to make sure that the center, if it was able to be seen, it matched everything cohesively. I'm taking this tacky glue to help me attach this floral mesh that I have from Dollar Tree. I'm gonna put this right in the center where we put our paints, and I'm not going to do it any particular way. I'm going to just flop it right over its own pattern all along the center, overlapping it with the tacky glue and the hot glue to ensure that we have a long-lasting hold and a quick immediate hold. And make sure whatever you're using to help you apply this protects your little finger bits. When you're happy with how you have your mesh spread out, and if you don't want to use this mesh, use ribbon, or don't use anything, just use the paint. I thought it would just be a nice addition because we're going to apply some florals in here as well. I'm adding some glue to make sure that we keep our fans spread completely open, so this way our design is displayed extremely well, showing the fan from point to point. I held everything in place for a minute or so to make sure it was all attached, and then flipped this completely upside down. When I went to attach the second fan completely opposite of the first one, I noticed there was some gaps. So I grabbed some more of that mesh and started putting it in there. So this way there was no spaces from the paint, the mesh, and then both of our folding fans. Once I had that all down, I then took the other fan and glued that down the same exact way that I glued the first one. This piece is pretty big, and I feel like the idea itself could be remixed into so many different things. You could absolutely take a welcome sign and put it in the center, use some of that floral foam, and put some decorative pieces over it to hide the floral foam. You could pop a mirror in the center of here as long as you have the correct brackets to hold everything in place and the right glue. I decided to take some bright floral colors and pop in here I feel like oranges and yellows go really well with this color blue. And then add a pretty metal floral right in the center. Remix this idea using any size frames and any kind of frames you would like. I am taking these Dollar Tree 5x7s and removing the glass piece so we can attach the Dollar Tree frosted window film right onto them. And people, be careful because these Dollar Tree glass pieces are a little fragile, okay? If you've never worked with them before, be careful. I'm using a color pencil to trace on the back of the frosted window film the size that we need to cut out to fit on the piece of glass. It is really important to use a scraping tool whenever you're applying this to make sure that it adheres really well and that this film isn't going to come back off. However, you want to be extremely ginger doing that with these Dollar Tree glass frame pieces because the glass, I have broken at least a dozen or more of these just by staring at them. Sorry. But look how pretty these turned out. So pretty. And you can obviously do this to as many frames as you would like and create as many different types of wall decor pieces in your home. Love this idea. For the design, I'm using these little anchor glass stickers that Dollar Tree carries. Obviously, use whatever you want to put in the center. Want it to keep it white to match with the frame. And you can plop colors in here. You could use a stencil for this. You could use a little decoupage paper or a napkin to put in the center here. Whatever design that you would like to stand out and be your focal point of your decor piece. Just wanted to use the anchors today, and I feel like these turned out so high-end looking. If you want to hang them on the wall, make sure that you add a little hanger in the back. I did take some tacky glue to the corners and around with a paintbrush, so this way once I sat the frame in here, we wouldn't have the tiny little black hooks popping around the corner holding onto the glass, that they would just be kind of sitting in here with some glue. I ensured the hold with a little bit of hot glue as well, and I chose to stage these up like some tabletop decor. Need 2 books, and I picked these up from Dollar Tree, and one is slightly bigger than the other one. You can use 3 books if you want, but I'm just using 2 for this. These are fairly big, and then I'm going to glue them together using wood glue for this process, and we're gonna let this dry before we do anything else to it. While this is drying, our molds. Now these are Prima designs. Please mind all the crusty bits in there. These things have seen better days, and I'm being lazy and didn't feel like cleaning it out. This is my favorite paper clay that I like to use. For those of you who have carpal tunnel, I've talked about this all the time. I use this particular clay because it is easy to mold. Here is me even showing you this stuff is getting a little crusty bits everywhere. It's kind of old, so I'm just adding some water to it, rolling it back up in my hand over and over again so I can press it down in this mold, and it brought it right back to life, and it was really easy to work with even when it was starting to go old. I obviously need to get more clay, but it worked, people. It worked. A little bit of water, you know, add to your clay and everything be okay. For the spines of the books, I always like to do 2 different pieces, so this way it just makes each book look a little bit unique in your stack. If you want to do the same spine, you go right ahead, but I'm using 2 different molds for this part. And then I'm attaching them with wood glue. I like to use wood glue when I'm doing this. I use this particular clay on my furniture as well, and I just feel like the bond holds really well with this particular clay and wood glue, even with the books, because I've made a bunch of book decor as well. So I just continue using this method. And I think there's even a book DIY video where I make a bunch of ideas in one video. I will see if I can find them and also put that in the description box for anyone that's interested to watch it. Here comes the not so fun part about this. Now you are forced to let these pieces dry, and by no means 30 minutes to an hour. You really need to let them dry 3 to 6 hours to make sure that these clay pieces are completely dry, because you're applying them as they are still wet, and the wood glue. Once your piece is completely dry, you're going to want to take whatever color paint that you want. I like to use chalk paints when I'm doing this, and I'm using Waverly's plaster and covering the entire set of both books. And this took me 2.5 coats. Really, the half was just me kind of going back and covering in little spots that didn't fill in. And then we're going to just take some extra little bits and put in the ends. Now, for this part, I was completely not paying attention to how much glue I should or shouldn't be putting on here. What in the world? Ah! Oh no. Now that we've averted that crisis. So I just taken these pieces, are all from Dollar Tree, and adding to the ends of the books just to give the spine a little something different. And I had these little metal pieces. It's like a frame and bunch of key pieces that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, along with this beautiful thick decorative paper that we are about to decoupage onto the top cover of this book. Now, if you're new to my content, let me just tell you, I decoupage everything I can decoupage, and this paper is so thick. So when you're using thick paper like this, it can be a challenge. But the first thing is to make sure you map out your area that you're purposefully placing your paper. So that's what I did, and then I made sure to cut out where we are putting our little frame, because we don't want to just lay our frame right on top of the paper. I mean, you can. I'm not going to do that. We're going to cut a little window out and then set it in there so it looks like our little frame and our key is sitting on the book, and then this is kind of just around the book. Now, it has been my experience, people, that less is more when it comes to decoupaging. However, don't less is more this paper. More is more with this paper. 1, it has grooves in it, so you got to get the Mod Podge in there. And 2, it's extra thick, so if you're not making sure that it is in all those parts, you're going to get bubbles. So instead of putting the Mod Podge on the book, I decided to do the entire back of the paper and then use my sponge to really push out any extra excess. And that's another reason I love the sponge, because the sponge grabs any extra Mod Podge. It doesn't get on me. And it's so sad. I'm like down to the last bit of my Gorilla Glue gel. This is my go-to stuff. I just love this stuff. But I'm using that to attach our little metal piece. Do not use hot glue attaching metal things. It will end up popping off down the road. Just listen to me. I have your back, okay? Have your back. Use some Gorilla Glue gel or some E6000, okay? Use that instead. Since everything is all dry, we're just going to go in and touch up all the shinies, because we do not want the shiny parts of what we just attached to come through in any way, shape, or form. So I'm just taking the same exact paint that I put on the book and covering up everything. And then we're going to grab some color and grab us a little sponge, and we're going to go over top of the book gently, putting some color in here just to add a little something something. You want to skip this part and just leave the book like it is. It's stunning just as it is. You go right ahead. I've had some people in the comments tell me I got a little extra sometimes and to stop layering. Bless y'all, but I'm extra, and this is my project. You DIY your stuff the way you want, okay? I'm here for inspiration, and I gotta let my own inspiration flow, and this is how I'm going with this. I'm adding the bright colors first, and this is so once I layer the vintage look on top of it, those bright colors kind of pop through that vintage aspect. And for that, I'm starting with a little bit of Waverly's Antique Wax, not heavy, just a tiny bit, and going around some of the edges on the book and some of the raised spots. Then I'm taking some of Dixie Belle's black gilding wax, rubbing a little bit on my finger, and then going over some of the areas to just add like a really dirt looking piece. Like this book stack has been sitting in the back of a library somewhere. And I had to glam it up just a smidge with a little bit of gold gilding wax. If you do not have these pieces, some metallic paints will work fine as well for the gold, or if you want to add silver. And that's going to be it for this. I walk past the little folding fans in Dollar Tree all the time, and today I thought, let's start flipping them suckers open. I've always wanted to just flip them open, and honestly, it's really not as easy as you think. But I know you're not here for my flipping, folding fan skills, as sad as it makes me. Whatcha? One more time. Okay, I'm done. Or am I? I'm just kidding. Isn't it pretty? This one's really pretty with the bright green and the gold. Some of these have little tassels dangling off of them, which is great because I really hate making tassels, so I'm gonna hoard them suckers for later. I just took it off and plopped it over in my pile to the side of the table. And be mindful when you're opening these, because certain ways they won't extend fully, and then other ways like this one, it extends all the way out and you can see the entire fan. For this tabletop decor piece, I wanted the fan to extend the entire length of the tray here. And I'm going to use a little floral foam scrap piece that I had sitting along the side because I just needed 2 small sections to be able to brace the fan right in the center. Well, not exactly in the center, on the sides of the center, because if you notice, the center kind of sticks down a little bit, and I wanted it to have a brace, and the floral foam provided that for me and allowed me to plop the ends of the fan in place and hold it once I glued it. For a long hold, I'm going to be using tacky glue to assist me with the hot glue. I want to make sure that the fan stays open, and there are a couple ways you can go about this. For this particular project, I just decided to make sure I use some tacky glue and some hot glue on each side of the ends of our fan. This way, the design stayed completely displayed. I had some hot glue foam sticks sitting around and put them suckers in my hot glue gun and went ham where I had the little floral foam pieces on each side just to ensure that this was going to stay in place when I had it all put together. To fill up the tray, I'm just using some of the little river rocks from Dollar Tree. Put whatever you want in here and use whatever color fan and tray you want to recreate this for what works for your home decor. I personally wanted to bring out that white and added a white candle and some white florals into our floral foam, and I love this so much. These hurricane vases you can grab from Dollar Tree are probably one of the most versatile pieces of glass that you can grab from there and turn them really into anything, especially a high-end decor piece, which is exactly what we're going to do using this Dollar Tree frosted window film. It's easy enough to measure around the glass and cut it down to size. And then any trimming you have to do, you can do with an X-Acto knife after, which you'll see me share with you at the end. I made sure where the film met around our little hurricane vase that there was a smidge of an overhang, not a whole lot. And as I was applying the film, I kept the backing on the excess that wasn't attached to our hurricane vase. So this way, the film didn't start attaching to anything else. And I'm about to be 100% real with y'all. This was my second take on this vase because my first take, I decided to pull the backing off and then just apply it with my hands instead of using this little scraper, and guess what? It didn't stick. Even though the directions on the box recommend using water, I found that just using the scraping tool will help this film stick really well to what you're applying it to. Just be mindful of the pressure that you're using with whatever surface you're attaching it to so you don't break anything. And just a heads up, while the footage may fool you into thinking this is super easy and it took me a couple minutes, it took me over 20 minutes to actually apply the film, making sure there were no bubbles and that this was attached on here really well. I took my X-Acto knife to the inner rim of the top of this hurricane jar. Vase, it's a vase, I keep saying one jar and then editing it back out just to let y'all know what's going on behind the scenes here. I'm cracking up at myself. I'm like, stop it, Brandy. If I had $1 for every time I had to edit out hurricane jar in this section of the video, I'd be rich. Anyhow, we're just gonna roll on with the rest of this DIY because we are basically done. If you want to add a little bit of Mod Podge around the edges and where the seam meets, you go right ahead. That's just gonna ensure that this is gonna stick on here all that much better. I love how this turned out. It is so beautiful. We're gonna need 3 of the long pallets, and we're gonna also need to cut up some popsicle sticks to create our little bond in the back. I like to cut them about this size, and I cut usually in between 4 to 6 because I'm never sure how many I'm going to use until I get into it. However, for this one I only end up using 4. To create my bonds, I love using wood glue and hot glue, and I make sure not to overlap them because they will cancel each other out. Once I get the hot glue on there, I then just place the little bits of the popsicle sticks over top. Plus, I think this is a good place to put the wood glue because it's going to smoosh in down to those cracks, kind of creating an extra bond between the 2 pieces. And decided to let this dry overnight. Now, a few hours will be fine if that's what you want to do. However, I'm stapling this nautical rope on here. You can use Gorilla Glue Gel or E6000. That will probably work just fine. But I like using a stapler, even if I'm using it backwards and the staples are not going in there. I don't know what was wrong with me in this stapler, but it wasn't coming together. It wasn't processing, and it took me a minute to really figure out that I needed to thin out the nautical rope. We're in there. That one's in there. Oh my God. Once I thinned out the nautical rope, the staples went in with no problem. So learn from my mistake, people. Thin out the ends and then use your staples, put it in there, however you want to say it, and it will work out just fine. I took some antique Waverly wax. Not getting fancy schmancy here. We're just gonna put a little bit on and dry brush it, and that's all I'm doing in terms of painting this. Wanted to just keep this really neutral, hence neutral DIYs. And then we're going to use some mini glass containers from Dollar Tree. I know they have several of these that have little corks in them. I like these ones because of the wider opening at the top. And I thought, let's put a little stencil on here. You know, I have all these different stencils, and I thought, let's use some Waverly white chalk paint, put the stencil in there. We're just going to dab it on in. It's going to be magnificent, and then it kind of wasn't. It looked like a glob of paint. So I just wiped that off and then went back in for another attempt, and it turned out much better. I put a little stencil design on each one of the glass jars and then grabbed some paper to decoupage this little wood slice from a pack you can pick up at Walmart. I put a little bit of Mod Podge on here, nothing heavy, a thin amount because we're doing some paper, and then I'm taking my sander and trying to play it off, even though I just dropped it on the floor. I picked it back up, sanded it off camera, and then took some antique Waverly wax to finish up the edges. I then grabbed some of these laser cutouts that was sent to me in another box from another subscriber. Thank you very, very much for these, and painted them with some white Waverly chalk paint. Then took some hot glue and put them down into the center of our pretty wall piece. And be careful because that glue, it will smoosh in between those little holes and burn you. So be careful. I took some black paint and did around the edges, and then found some little floral wire, so this way we could wrap it around the top of our jars to be able to twist in the back and then attach to our frame that we have built here with our palettes, our little wall decor piece, and we're going to be you'll be able to remove these, as nothing's going to be set in stone. So if you want to change the mini glass jars out, because Dollar Tree does have many different options, you do you. I'm just giving you the ideas. You take them, you remix them, and make them into whatever makes you fuzzy inside. Okay, now I did kind of stagger the bottles in different spots, and then just added some little greenery. So much stuff would look so cute like these. I love how this turned out. For this little plant holder, we're going to need 4 of the small palettes from Dollar Tree and some paint sticks. You can pick this pack up at Home Depot. These are $1.48 and you're getting 30 of them. So that's a pretty good deal to me. I just painted this all white, and I did it off camera to save y'all time. You see me paint the first project white. You guys know how to paint things. I'm sorry. I love y'all. I'm just messing with y'all. Paint it white, paint it whatever color you want, okay? To attach each one of these pieces, we're going to use wood glue and hot glue. And as you can see here, I was like, oh, this is not going to satisfy me as I'm trying to make this. So I brought in the stapler to save the day. So I put a staple or 2, you know what I mean, at the bottom to ensure that this sucker was not going anywhere. We are going to add popsicle sticks at the bottom of it too for our little base, but you know, just I feel fuzzy inside doing it like this. I have actually recreated this today for you. I have made this exact DIY almost exactly before as a fall decor piece. Today I wanted to give you the idea to be able to use this in many different ways, because this is such, I think people sleep on the palettes and I need to stop that. Okay. Stop sleeping on Dollar Tree palettes. So I need to give you ideas and inspiration. And that's what I'm trying to do here with this little piece. I am going over and touching up the white. I just wanted you to see that, because again, this is why I like to use my 2 favorite methods to do the palettes, because you will have to go touch these up. I cut the popsicle sticks to size to put on the bottom. So this, you could use a solid piece of wood here if you want it to. I'm just using the popsicle sticks, and we're going to use more hot glue and wood glue to attach these pieces. And then we're going to staple them on down, because these suckers were wobbly. I was like, these popsicle sticks are not made of the best quality. I have a problem with how wiggly they are. So staples it is. And next, I'm attaching our little snowmen. These are from Dollar Tree as our feet. We're going to put some wood glue on here, and then we're going to attach it. This is the moment that I realized I cut the popsicle sticks wrong. So I just kind of, you know, I came back in with the shears and trimmed it up. You know, sometimes your measurements are off. It happens, okay? Off camera, I then attached these with some wood glue, and I let this dry for about 30 minutes. You let it dry for an hour or more. I had to hurry this up because I'm filming for you. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get this done. And then I took some white paint and went over everything so it all matched. And here is the first idea. Nice, simple, and really goes with anything. You could put a little glass vase in here, or you could just put florals in here with some fairy lights like I did. And if you want to kick it up a notch, take some of Dollar Tree's metal lace and wrap it around here and attach it. This will give it another look, or you can take some ribbon. Your color choice is completely up to you. And make sure your florals match with it. It just gives it a whole nother look. I love all these ideas, but people, I couldn't stop you. Oh no, we're gonna bust out the clay and my favorite mold. This is my favorite clay, and the reason is it's super easy to work with. I struggle with grip issues, and I don't have to do a lot of pushing and prying. I do have clay tools that I use as well to help me get in the little cracks, and you can just kind of press them down to make sure that your clay is nice and flat. And people, I am so sorry. I do forget to mention all the time that I have an Amazon store. The link is down in the description box. I also have a website. The link is down in the description box. A lot of the things you see me use or even create are on my website. You can pick them up from there or in the Amazon store. I'm always asked these questions and I forget to plug that stuff very often because I'm just so busy trying to bring y'all content you enjoy. Please forgive me. I do not mean to forget any of that. And here all I'm doing is taking some tacky glue and attaching this burlap strip that I frayed and putting on our little clay mold right to the front with some wood glue. I let this dry overnight and then came back in and painted it white. And then took some of Dixie Belle's gilding wax. If you do not have this, some silver glittery paint would work fine as well. Just make sure you have dried it off on your finger and apply it. It really makes everything just kind of pop. For our next project, we're going to need 4 of the larger palettes, and I'm going to just paint them with some Waverly White and a little bit of water. I like to mix them together. An easy way to get the palettes all covered. I've done that in past videos, but I want to save you your viewing time here. Make sure you let your palettes dry really well, especially if you're going to glue them together. If not, you know, glue is not going to work well on a damp surface, okay? You don't need me to explain that to you, but if you do, let me know in the comments. I'll have a conversation with you. For the sake of how tiny the space was that I was using to glue these together, I just used hot glue. But I did go over these and paint some wood glue over top of it for a longer hold. I always tell people, do not just use hot glue on your products. If someone is telling you just use the hot glue, that's fine for crafter's sake if you're just like keeping something and you don't care if it falls apart, but hot glue will wear, especially if you leave it in the sun, it will melt. Try and put some E6000 wood glue or some of my favorite Gorilla Glue gel on your products for that long lasting bond. So this way, if the hot glue on your project is having a bad day, you know, the Gorilla Glue gel has its back and it's going to hold your stuff together. Once you have all your little sides together, you could leave it like this, but I'm going to take this stick. I do not remember if I picked this up from Hobby Lobby or if I got it from Home Depot, but they both sell these little square dowels. Well, it's not little, it's kind of thick actually. And all I'm doing for this part, which is a little tedious, is measuring it to size. So this way I can wrap it around the center to give us a little bit of contrast, add a little bit more of a high-end looking thing. I was trying to take these crafts up a notch to more of looking like a home decor piece you'd pick up somewhere in a store and pay a little bit more money for. I do want to me and these miter shears. So they did the job, but yeah. If you got a miter box, it might be a little bit easier than these with how thick this particular one was. And again, you can do this as thin or as thick as you want, but see me over here using the hot glue just for that quick bond in that one spot. The rest is all wood glue, so I know that these wood pieces are not going to come peeling off of here anytime soon. If you want to bust out a level to make sure that these are exactly in the precise spot as you go around, go right ahead. You know I like to wing things, so that's pretty much what I did here, and I adjusted with each turn. The piece is really universal, and you can honestly use it anywhere in your home to give it a little oomph. Next time you're in Dollar Tree looking for some amazing glassware to do some DIYs to, grab yourself 2 of these joints right here. And while you're at it, pick one of these up. And since we're splurging, grab one of these too. The cool thing about these candle holders is that they have a very similar look and different heights. So when we place these little floral pieces right on the top, it's going to give them a very similar look, helping them to create a set. You can obviously hand paint this if you want to. I've been in a spray painting mood, people, so I wanted to use some of this Coastal Sage in the matte, I'm loving this color as well, to give these a nice coat. And since the floral piece had a lot of little bits that were kind of separate, I decided to wait to attach the pieces until after they were spray painted. For the attachment, I'm going to use my favorite Gorilla Glue gel. People, use whatever glue you feel works best on glass. This just works best for me, and that's why I chose to use this. You can absolutely seal over this, use some Rust-Oleum spray paint in the matte, and people, I'm absolutely loving this color right now. What do you think? I was inspired by this piece I seen online at Kohl's, and I'm thinking to myself, I think we can recreate this using these bottles at Dollar Tree. But before we get to the hand painting part, we're going to need to put in a little bit of prep work and clean the bottle. I cleaned this just with some alcohol, and once it was dry, I grabbed my frosted glass spray paint that I had on hand. Use whichever spray paint you would like, and then give it a nice coat. As you can see, I didn't go too heavy on the bottom because we have to tint it going up. But the top is beautiful, and I am happy with that. You can do as many coats as you like. I just did one. For the translucent blend, I'm going to take some of this Dragonfly glaze I picked up from Hobby Lobby and mix it with a little bit of blue acrylic paint. You can do this several different ways. This is just one that I'm sharing today. And I also want to mention that if you use a chalk paint, it's going to give you more of a solid coverage. Mixing it in with this glaze, the acrylic will be more translucent. I don't want to see any brush strokes on this, so a way to avoid that is by getting a pouncer and gently tappity tap 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 in all over your piece. Now this is going to take several coats because it is extremely translucent, but I know that using a pouncer is going to give me a nice even coat from the start, not having to deal with fixing any brush strokes on my glass. And in case you're wondering, I put 3 coats on this joint, okay? While it's drying, I grabbed myself a little white, I guess this piece of cardboard I kind of had laying around, to do a rough sketch. Since I'm using my phone to record, I can't necessarily keep looking at the picture, so having a rough sketch right in front of me like this, at least kind of how I want the branches, is going to help me go along with painting. Even though we have like a layer over our glass, I'm making sure to use paints that work well with glass, like multi-surface and chalk. And the acrylics you see me have here, even though they don't work necessarily well with glass, if you mix them with the chalk or you mix them with a multi-surface, they will tint and you will still have good adhesion onto that material. I'm going to use some of this black ink paint to mix with some brown acrylic because I didn't have any chalk or multi-surface in a dark brown. This is going to be our base for the branches. I could not have been happier with how this blue color turned out on the bottom of this glass. It's got like a nice metallic glow going on with it. I found one of the smallest round brushes that I had in my stash and did a couple paint strokes to test over on the side. If you look at the white little paper or white cardboard sitting there, and then I just tried to use my little sketch that I had there, not necessarily as an exact picture for me to copy, but kind of just a guide as how I wanted to place the branches. And this is all going to be really sped up, but it took me about an hour and a half to completely paint this glass bottle. For our flower petals, I'm going to use some of this multi-surface paint and some of this brown acrylic paint. One thing I really like to do is to blend 2 colors together whenever I'm painting something, like intermingling the 2. This kind of gives you a really cool transition between one section of the piece of art that you're creating into another So as you're doing different strokes, it kind of gives its own individuality of each section. I hope that makes sense. So here we're creating petals. So each petal will have its own unique color variation, helping it to look a little bit more realistic. And to be able to create petals using a larger round brush and pressing down and pulling inward with each stroke will give you this appearance. When you're happy with your floral placements, go ahead and let that dry before moving on to the next part. On Nicole's piece, there were little buds. So I want to recreate that in certain sections as well, just to try to keep it as close to the original as I can. And to do that, I'm just blending the two colors and doing one stroke, starting with the tip of the round brush away from where the branch is and pulling it inward. To tie those little buds into the branch, I'm taking some more of our black and brown mixture and then kind of drawing around the buds and then pulling it into the branch. You can finish up the center of your flowers however you want. There's so many different ways to be able to do that. I'm just using a dotting tool with some yellow chalk paint and just tappity tap tap tapping right on the center of that flower. Well, each one of the little flowers. When I was happy with that, I then took some more of that black and brown mixture and tapped little dots on the inside and came back in with some white and some of that light brown along the branch bits and created some highlights. If you want to seal over this, go right ahead, use whatever sealer you feel works best. I will probably wait until this is fully dry the next day and grab some clear Rust-Oleum in the mat and give it a nice spray over. For this decorative storage space idea, you're going to need to grab 2 of the smaller mason jars from Dollar Tree and 1 of these baskets. I'm really into the Dollar Tree baskets right now. Then do yourself a favor and take a minute to put both of these mason jars inside your baskets. You're going to notice that it's a little snug. The reason why I tell you to take a minute doing that is so you can figure out the size that you want to press this basket out to fit in your mason jars. Lucky for us, these baskets are pretty manipulatable. So I decided to continue to put them in and then move the basket around and create a shape that I thought would look best for this decor piece. I also decided to kind of push the basket down a little bit more, so this way the jars stood out over top of the basket. I took the center of the metal pieces out and just kept the little rings. Now you don't have to do this part if you want to just leave your mason jars as they are, you go right ahead, but I wanted to add a little bit of color, so I took some of this ink chalk paint by Waverly and gave these a nice coat. I ended up putting 3 coats on here for good coverage, and if you want to plop a sealer on here, go ahead and put a little layer of Mod Podge over it. Absolutely won't hurt. I really just wanted to add the black on here for a little bit of color to match our basket, but you don't have to put anything on your mason jars at all. You can really do a lot with this little idea. I decided that I was going to put them in the bathroom with a little bit of greenery because it matched some of the accents that were already in the bathroom to use to hold some toothbrushes and some cotton balls. Next time you're in Dollar Tree, grab some of these beautiful decorative wall mirrors. For this large wall decor set, we're gonna need 2 of these. And we're gonna need to remove the mirrors. So to do this, I kind of started, bending it around and stuff, seeing if I could wiggle it loose. This was my first time doing this. Oh no, 7 years. I did better the second time around. This might not be the right channel for this, but who believes in superstitions? Because I'm in trouble. It's okay. I'm going to be okay, right? Okay, moving on. We're going to give these a coat of spray paint with this beautiful coastal sage color I've been in love with recently. If you want to put a sealer over these, you go right ahead. It's not going to hurt anything. For the large background, I'm going to be using 2 of these 11 by 14 inch artist canvases from Dollar Tree. And then I headed over to their little wallpaper section and grabbed this wallpaper. Obviously, use whatever design you want for the back. This is just what I went with. These are also super easy to use, but I will tell you, they will peel off fairly easy of the canvas. So it's good to use some extra spray stick or maybe even do a little bit of Mod Podge on there before you peel them on down and put them into place. This way you're just ensuring that whatever you're putting your wallpaper on, especially if it's a canvas, it's not going to go peeling back up anytime soon. And another good tip is just to take a scraping tool and rub that wallpaper all down on your canvas, whether you're using that extra adhesive sticky stuff or not, so this way you get all your bubbles out. Then I trimmed it on down to size, and if you're fine with your piece, leave it as it is. Me, however, I'm gonna bring on in my tumbling tower blocks so I can create a little trim around the edge. I wanted the trim white, and if you don't want to do tumbling tower blocks, you could obviously use a piece of wood or whatever, but I will tell you that this is painstaking, and it was at this moment that I realized I hated my life and I could not paint these individually like this. So a little tip if you love doing tumbling tower block projects is to gather them all up in a line like this and then apply your paint. Spray paint is also easy too, but if you don't want to use spray paint, this works really well. Take your heat gun them off, and then rotate them, paint the other side, and then rinse and repeat until your tumbling blocks are completely painted the way that you wanted. Now mind the little brown spots, okay, because they didn't all need to be painted. Not every side, people, okay? Just certain pieces, and I can be lazy at crafting sometimes, and I needed a lot of these little blocks. Give me a break. Give me some grace. You're not even going to notice the spots I didn't paint, okay? Then you're going to just take them and line them up. Keep in mind that there's going to be a little bit of hangover, okay? See how on each side there is a smidge of a hangover, and you're just going to adjust as you're gluing these down. I do recommend laying the pieces out on the long sides prior to gluing them down on the small sides because accidents happen. I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have did that. I did the corner first. Be mindful to just put the corner on last, okay? Put the corner on last, because if not, I got lucky that that didn't peel all the way out, but learn from my mistakes. I did notice that there were a couple little neutral spots left, so I took some of that white paint and just went around touching everything up. For the center of the mirrors, we're going to use some burlap, and to attach it, we're going to do that with some tacky glue after we cut a nice little circle that fits perfectly right in the middle where the mirror used to be. Remember that broken mirror? Yeah, I'm moving on from it, okay? Smush you some tacky glue down around the center and leave enough space to put some hot glue around the outside. This way that tacky glue is going to hold that burlap into place over time, and that hot glue is going to get it down into place immediately. You can skip this next part if you want, but my burlap cutting game was off. So I used some of this little teeny tiny white rope or cream colored rope to just tuck one in around the edges. Use whatever flowers you want for the center of your pieces. I decided to just roll on with some succulents, and please make sure to add some tacky glue onto the back of yours. And you want to make sure that you're adding some Gorilla Glue gel or some tacky glue or E6000 onto the back of this as well before you press it onto your piece. Using just hot glue on the edges will probably have this pop right off that wallpaper. This idea, it is super simple if you have the pieces. Now, this thing, I don't know where I got it from, people. I don't know where it came from. Sorry. This joint, though, I know I picked up from Dollar Tree, and we're going to use this to plop a pretty stencil on and create a beautiful hanging wall decor piece. For the stencil portion, I'm going to use some of my favorite texture paste. I do have this linked down in my Amazon affiliate link in the description box if you're interested. I'm taking a little bit of black paint just to change the color of this. Feel free to keep yours white or whatever color you want to turn it, my friends. And if you just want to use some paint and do a regular stencil, by all means, that'll work too. Normally, and most of the time, I highly recommend you using some painter's tape to tape your stencil down whenever you're creating a raised texture look. Lately, I've been making pieces that are like way bigger than what I'm putting them on, so I have nowhere to tape it to. So I'm carefully holding that sucker on there, praying I don't make too much of a mess underneath the stencil. And I think it turned out pretty good. For the attachment, I'm going to use a little bit of wood glue and hot glue just to put this onto our dowel that we have here on the hanging piece. Feel free to use whatever brackets or whatever extra glue you want to be able to accomplish this. I was content with my hold and love how this turned out. If you want to seal over it, by all means, grab you some Mod Podge and plop right on over top of this once it's completely dry. Even though these welcome tabletop signs aren't that expensive, I still felt like we could remix this using some of Dollar Tree's metal words. You get 3 in a pack, so you really get a little bit of versatility here. If you want to paint these, you absolutely can, but I'm not going to. And I want to show you 2 different ideas for this dupe. One is just to grab a piece of scrap wood. I had this one laying around that had a little dent in it, and our harvest fits in there perfectly. Another, of course, is to use tumbling tower blocks. Are you shocked? I grabbed my tacky glue and I attached several of the tumbling blocks together until they were the exact length of the little scrap piece that I had on the side, which, in case you're wondering, is 5 tumbling blocks, and you'll need a total of 10, the exact same size. Leave them split apart so they can dry. You can paint these whatever color you want. I'm just going to use some of my black satin multi-surface paints and give these each a nice coat. When they were dry, I grabbed my favorite Gorilla Glue gel, and on the welcome sign that I'm putting in the tumbling tower blocks, I put at the bottom of the front and the back on the farthest sides of the pieces of the words that I knew were going to dip down into the tumbling blocks, along with a little smoosh of glue on each end. I then took a minute putting it right in the spot that made sense, pressing it together, and I grabbed some clamps to help hold it in place for about 20 minutes. Where it gets tricky is if you want to do a piece of scrap wood like I am here with the divot in the center, you're going to need to hold that in place while it dries, or use an accelerator to speed up the drying process. It will absolutely hold, it's just going to require a little bit of patience. For anyone actually questioning whether or not it was holding, I wanted to pick it up and turn it to the side so you can see it's really just the Gorilla Glue gel holding this little metal word into place on here. I got full confidence in my Gorilla Glue gel. Busted canvases have been all along my feed lately. The first time I was introduced to them was by Tracy's Crafty Creations, then I seen Crafty Kathy making one, and then I seen this cool reel made by Rustic and Lace. Then I just started feeling like I was missing out. So I did what any crafter would do. I hit up Dollar Tree, I went and gathered supplies, I went into my stash and collected all the things I needed. And here we are. For this decorative busted canvas, you're gonna need one of Dollar Tree's 8x10 canvases. Now you can create the backing to this several different ways. We're gonna use this for the front. You can easily take two canvases and put them back to back like this, so you can put your main design on the inside of the back canvas piece. If you can't find canvas panels, which was the case for me at my local Dollar Tree, you could use the back of the gift boxes. They fit perfectly on here. You can just cut them down to size, and then you could staple them onto the back of the canvas using this as your main piece. For the back part, you're gonna want to try and pick up the canvas panels if your Dollar Tree carries them. If not, don't fret, Walmart does carry them as well. And you're gonna wanna pick these up in the Hobby Lobby brand. This is over in the kids crafts section because they are way cheaper than the artesian ones over in the adult crafting section. For this bathroom busted canvas DIY, we're going to be using the back of one of the gift boxes, or the outside of one of the gift boxes. This way, in the event that you struggle to find the canvas flat panels, this is how you're going to remedy that. I mean, you could absolutely get poster board and cut it down, but for me, these were already basically the exact size. We're just trimming off that little bit of excess, so why am I going to make my crafting life any harder? We kind of struggle enough around here. I grabbed a pack of these wall creations from Dollar Tree, and we're going to use the toilet shape one, mostly because I like the shape, but I really wanted to use the always wash your hand. And yes, I could have made several of these, but listen, I'm trying to give you as many ideas as I can in one video. So here we go. I plopped this on the back of the gift box and then picked a stencil out. We're going to take the canvas, have that flipped upside down, pick a paint color, and then just tappity tap tap tap, or smushity smush 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 our stencil until we have the design on the back of the inside of the canvas. Once you're all done with that, then grab a paint color. For this one in particular, I am just going to paint the outside of the canvas black, so this way it matches everything else that we've been creating. And you can get a box cutter. I'm using an X-Acto knife to just cut us our sections on our canvas to be able to peel back to create that busted canvas appearance. Now people, I did not measure this, and I want to share with you how easy it is just to cut it. Take a second, and guess what? If it's crooked, it's not going to matter. Look at this joint, absolutely crooked. Do not stress yourself out if your cuts are not perfect, okay? As you fold them, and people, when you fold them, it takes time. It takes time. Hold it in place with your glue. Don't let it go real quick. It's going to pop right off, especially if your paint is not completely dry. Or if you have something decoupage down here and it's not completely dry, you put that hot glue on there and it is going to pop right up and possibly peel off the paint and possibly peel up the decoupage. I've done enough of these for trial and error for this video to give you all quality information to tell you just to put the hot glue on there and hold it. Okay, be patient, hold it into place. And if I'm being 1000% honest, once it's down, take a little bit of tacky glue on a paintbrush and kind of smush in there just for some extra fuzzies. Okay, use your hot glue or your staples or however you want to attach this onto the back of your canvas. You can add whatever accents you want. I wanted to keep this very modern and simple. I think it looks really high-end and amazing hanging in the bathroom. I know what you're thinking, Brandy, not another lantern DIY. How many more lantern DIYs we need to see? This one, people. Listen, these lanterns are actually pretty inexpensive. They come in different sizes, and y'all know I love options. People, they also come in different colors, but I have a twist on these that I had to share. So just roll on with me. We're gonna need 2 of these Shadow Heidi box thingies from Dollar Tree, okay? $1.25 each. And then you're gonna need a wood stick. Whatever type of wood stick you would like. If you want to use tumbling blocks for this part, you go right ahead. I was not in the mood to put them suckers together. And I had this in my stash that I picked up from, I think, Home Depot. These are pretty inexpensive. So I brought one in the miter shears and then kind of eyeballed a size. I didn't measure, if I'm being honest. I was like, this height looks good, and just chopped me 4 equal parts. Don't you just love when pieces get flying across the room and you're like, I'll find that next project? Here's where the twist comes in, because I'm sure you've seen the build construction before. We're going to take some texture paste and a stencil and create a raised stencil in the outer part of the box that has a pop through of color. Brandy, what are you talking about? Listen, we're going to mix some brown, okay? Still giving it the boho-y type feel, and you can recreate this with pretty much any type of stencil. Mix in with the texture paste. That's another thing I love about using this stuff, is you can take whatever color you want and you can turn it that color. And it's super easy to spread. Now I like to tape, as you can see, I got the painter's tape sitting down there. I tried to tape it on there, but it was not, you know, big enough. It was too small. So I decided to just hold it on here with my hand and gently spread it out. If you don't have a fancy schmancy spreader to do something like this, people use like a plastic spoon or whatever. You can go ahead and wing it. It's going to spread no matter what. I've even used my finger in a pinch with a wet paper towel, keeping my finger clean as I swiped the medium. And honestly, you can wipe the stencil off as you go as well, keeping it clean as you're smooshing. Sometimes I get like 3 applications before there starts to become a lot of bleed through. It just really depends on how well I have the stencil attached to the surface. Once the piece was completely dry, and you can usually check that by like taking your fingernail and pressing into the texture, it took about 45 minutes to an hour. And if you want to speed it up, you know, you take your heat gun. Some of us don't have a lot of patience. And then you just paint over your piece. I just used some Waverly chalk paint in the white for this, and I gave the entire lantern a nice coat. When our paint was all dry, I grabbed my Type-On Quick and Thick wood glue. I smooshed a little bit in each corner, and then I grabbed the hot glue gun and put a little bit on the legs of our bracelet. What are we calling these? The wood pieces that go in the corner that attach the top and the bottom. How's that sound? The wood pieces. Let me know in the comments, what do you call them? I'm calling them legs. The lanterns have legs. I put these in there, and then I attached the top also using more wood glue and more hot glue. You can leave this like that if you want. It's nice, right? But I decided to grab one of Dollar Tree's little wood rings to just put in the center on the top of our roof, and I'm painting that the same brown paint that we put in our texture paint. Why, you may ask? Because we're going to grab some sandpaper and we are going to knock the top layer of that white paint off of our raised texture that we have, so that the beautiful color that we put in that texture mixture pops through. We have a gorgeous design all around the lantern. I love these beautiful antique farmhouse botanical pieces I found on Pinterest. I figured we could pop in Dollar Tree and grab a couple things that we could dupe something ourselves. Maybe not exactly the same, but inspired just as much. I knew from comparing them inside the store that our wallpaper was going to fit in here perfectly, so I just removed the back and the glass very gingerly. This stuff is easy to break, so just be careful. And then I measured the wallpaper down to size to fit the piece of cardboard that was in the back of our frame. It wasn't writing. That sucker like dried out on me or something. And what's worse is I thought it was going to be there. I was completely shocked. Anyhow, I got the pen working and then traced both of our wallpaper pieces in the sections that I wanted to show in the frame. I then just cut them down to size and took the backing off of each piece of the wallpaper and stuck it to the cardboard. Normally I'll do like some extra Mod Podge or maybe even a little bit of glue, because sometimes this wallpaper doesn't always stick, but people, let me tell you something, it sticks really, really good to cardboard. Just get yourself something to be able to scrape that wallpaper onto the cardboard to make sure the application is flawless. If you want to put the glass back in, go right ahead. I decided to leave mine completely out. It's absolutely a preference. It's not going to hurt one way or the other. I felt like mine would be just fine without the glass. I even think the frame would have probably looked really pretty if I would have painted it white and maybe did some little bit of distressing, but I love how that black kind of helped the design pop in the center. I love how elegant these turned out, and they were super easy to do. For this busted canvas, we're gonna just take some TDS Decoupage Paper and tear a little section out of one of the designs. This is one of my favorite designs. It's called Avian News, and I wanted to share this with you all because I know so many of you love birds, and since you can kind of tuck things in the canvas, thought it would be super cute if we tucked a little bird's nest in here. For our medium, I'm just going to apply a little layer of Mod Podge. And since the backing is white and our decoupage paper is white, I'm not going to worry about painting anything, and I'm not going to really worry about going over the decoupage paper either. I like how the words are on this piece right here. So for the front of the canvas, I went and grabbed a piece of A4 TDS rice paper and attach that to the front of the canvas. So there was kind of like some blend with the writing. I painted the back of the front of the canvas green and went straight down with my cut for the busted section. And then I decided to kind of go sideways with them, so it kind of opened to the right and to the left. I took some of my favorite paper clay and popped it into a mold just to create a little piece to add at the top of our busted canvas. It needed just a little bit of something to add to this top portion. I had these little bird's nests in my stash that I picked up last year from Hobby Lobby. I tucked it right in the corner and it just looks so perfect in this piece. Absolutely love how this turned out. If you're looking for more Dollar Tree inspiration, check out this video right here. And as always, people, thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. And until next time.